Hey everybody, it's teZa with the drum this time. Carter is on sabbatical. And so I'm going solo. What an interesting thing to take the reins of, like a co-piloting beautiful plane that's been soaring for years now with our podcasting and our ideas and sharing this and that and adventures and one guest that we had for many episodes, our 100-year-old friend. We should have her back now that she's past the centennial year of her birth. So going solo after being accustomed to having a co-pilot is a little challenging. I find myself being really excited about sharing in a deeper, more private, more true to me level. Because when you ever have another person that you're either having a conversation with or bouncing your ideas off of, there's always a little bit of a game going on, like a tennis match. The ball goes back and forth, repartee. That person says this, another person says that. But when you're sharing from your own heart and soul and mind to other people out there, like in the universe, like in the internet world that podcasters do, it's really different. It's not like just talking to yourself, that's for sure, because whenever I talk to myself, I catch myself and say, oh my God, there I go again. That's a little nutty. That's just, I don't know, it's just kind of masturbation of the mind, isn't it? But when you're sharing thoughts with people who might be tuning in, as we do in the podcast world, it's different. It's like writing a book and publishing it, or sending an essay into a major publication and giving your thoughts about something. And of course, they are called opinions. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has thoughts. And so when you're sharing them by yourself without another person there making even faces or not faces, the energy, the vibe that you have with another person, it's very different than when you are sharing an important thing, because let's face it, if it's important enough to be on a podcast, it's something worthwhile listening to, I can imagine you're saying to yourself. So what is she going to be sharing today? Because change is the name of the game always in life. I discovered that as a young person when I started needing advice more than what my parents could provide, or church or school. And I started having a deep relationship with the book of change called the I Ching. I learned at a pretty early age that the one consistency that you can count on is change. And of course, soon thereafter, I discovered that the spiritual realm is also something you can count on. And that is the saving grace of change. Anybody who does not have a really comfortable relationship with the fact that this material world here, this world of blood and guts and politics and pollution, has something more going on with it, which some people call the sacred, or consciousness, or mindfulness. There's another dimension going on besides just what you read about or see on your screen, or as somebody said on Saturday Night Live, reading your phone. Really, does anybody read a newspaper anymore? So, change. Now, we talked about change a lot in the many years that Carter and I, my beloved co-host, who's now actually playing tennis. I mean, he's back in the saddle after having had some injuries, so that's his focus these days. And I celebrate that. He's such an incredibly healthy and well-balanced mate and an interesting partner. But right now, I'm flying solo about change. And one of the changes that I want to really get into wholeheartedly, with no hesitation about sharing what is going on with me, and I know that everybody really is interested about, like teZa Lord, right? Well, Some are, and some aren't. But I think every single person has something interesting to contribute to this world. I'm a big believer that each one of us is an important little snowflake in this storm of life on the planet. Each one of us has something to offer. So change is happening very, very rapidly in American society, as it is in the 21st century everywhere. But I think we feel it a little more intensely these days in America because, of course, we've had a change in our administration, and many, many people are very disturbed about the changes going on. And myself, I have to state right off the bat that I am more of a witness. I am watching the changes. I am trying not to have opinions about what is going on because I realize that the people have voted. This is not November. We have already voted here in America, and the administration is a result of the voting. So we're not going to have another vote for another 4 years. So I myself do not choose to be in a state of angst for the next 4 years. I just refuse to do that. I'm going to want to choose a peaceful, balanced, productive, and worthwhile life for the next 4 years. And in order to do that, I am not going to get myself involved with having opinions about what's going on. But many people are. And so I've noticed in the last, we're in the second month of 2025. Hello, here we are, 2025. We're in the second month, and I've noticed that a lot everywhere I go, not just among friends, but on social media, and I go to here and there. I go to gatherings. I go to spiritual gatherings, religious gatherings, literary gatherings, art gatherings. Everywhere I go, people are very disturbed, and change is hard. It's the first sentence of one of the most popular books and one of the early books about the spiritual life, the road less traveled. The first sentence is, life is hard. There's nothing easy about life. We may have periods of respite where we're feeling okay or even happy or content, but we're going to have many challenges. That's just the way it is. That's the way everybody's life is. It's not just a few lucky people who appear on the outside to have a very blessed life. Believe me, any person who you get to know who on the outside appears to have no troubles, they have troubles. They just are not publicizing them, and they're not easily recognizable. Maybe they're not carrying it around on their shoulder. They're keeping it quiet and private. But life is difficult. And so we have choices. We have the choice to accept the fact that life is difficult and change is difficult. And this time that we're all living through has many additional challenges because of the enormous amount of changes that are happening publicly rather than just our own little private lives. The changes that we naturally go through when we look in the mirror from year to year and see, oh, I'm older. Or if you have an injury, or if you have a child, or if you have moved, or if you've had trauma. We notice that. But our own private life is one thing, and that's mostly the focus that we've ever talked about on all the episodes that we've had on See Lord here. But I'm also talking about the culture and the collective, the unconscious and the conscious collective. There is a big change adrift, and everybody knows this. I mean, one would have to have their head in the sand to say that, no, that's not happening, or it doesn't affect me. Years ago, when I left America because of another political crisis at the end of the Vietnam era, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was old enough and had made enough choices in life to realize I really wanted out. So I left America, and I spent the entire decade of the 70s, working, traveling, living in the West Indies, from island to island, from business to business, had many adventures that I'm so glad that I had them then, rather than waiting till later like a lot of people do. They say, oh, well, I've got a career, I've got family, I'll have my adventures when I retire. But you can't count on that, because you don't know what's going to happen when you get to that stage in life. So when somebody has the urge, that feeling within them that they must change their environment or their relationship with life, then I really think it's our soul, it's our psyche that's knocking on our mental door saying, make some change. Whatever it is, it could be a little change, it could be a big change. But for me, I had to leave America, really leave America, like lock, stock, and barrel, and not come back until I was ready. And that's like a whole nother story. We're not going to get into that, though. So whenever I run into anybody who starts bitching, because a lot of people just love to bitch, it's almost like the public has become addicted to it. Maybe it is a cultural phenomena that people just love drama. They can't just say, oh, well, this is happening and, I'm going to get on with my life the best I can and let whatever is going on in the politics of life, let them do their thing, because we cannot change an election right now. In 4 years' time, then people can start rallying and doing their political thing. But who wants to spend the next 4 years in angst? Not me. And so the first big change that we all have to admit is there's a cultural shift happening. The collective unconscious has run up against this bulwark where a lot of people can't get beyond their feelings of discontent, anger, sadness, fright, grief. And I find it very interesting, and that's why I need to talk about it here, because I might give some comfort to somebody, as I did with a friend the other day. I went to visit a very, very, very politically involved friend of mine who happens to be a really great artist, as I think I am. And she's involved with literature and involved with, just the contemporary scene. Not so that she's a freak about it. She's not even on social media, but she knows what's going on. And our conversation started off with how she is in a state of grief. And it's like her soul has been killed because of what's happening in the outside world. And so what's her answer? She's planning on moving to Mexico, of all places, where I didn't want to burst her bubble, but I felt maybe in another conversation I should remind her that all throughout Mexico there's always the danger of criminals and even more angst, because I've been to many countries and there are places in America that are peaceful and calm. You can get away from the news. You can get away from people who argue. But in Mexico, unless you're just living on the top of a mountain, which is where she's headed for, San Miguel de Allende, where only expats live, rich expats, mind you, rich, the ones who are fleeing America because they're rich enough to do that. But why not just stay in America and have another alternative, which is to see that we are in a period of growth. And as I relate to what's happening out there, to my own life, what I've gone through, and many of you know from having listened, I am a recovering person. I was in addiction heavily until I reached the age of 36. And so I've been in recovery for over 40 years now. And nobody changes unless they are forced to. Most people just do not wake up and say, oh, I'm going to, change my diet. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to get rid of this 10 pounds I gained. They don't do that until they are just so grossed out by what's happening with their body, or so grossed out by what's happening with the world that they are forced to change something. And so we are at that place now where people are really grossed out, really heartsick, really sad, frustrated, all those things. I do not feel that way. I feel this is an amazing time that we're living through. It's like a golden opportunity that the forces that be, call it sacred, call it the divine, call it the consciousness that rules the entire universe, that keeps the sun out there in orbit, that keeps the moon shining and in orbit. It is a force of consciousness, a force of commonality that has actually been discovered, from the recent discovery of almost a decade ago of what they call the God factor, or whatnot, the Higgs boson, which is almost like a hidden little tiny piece of energy that is in with each and every cell of not just our being, because we are conscious people, but every cell and every atom that the scientists and the physicists and the whatever they're called, the quantum this and that's, have been able to reap from ships that have gone off into space and collected dust and collected meteor dust, and it's permeating everything. There is consciousness everywhere, and if we see that that is the commonality that we are all a part of, doesn't it make us feel comforted that we are all connected through consciousness, through this little tiny hidden piece of electric, whatever, atomic, I don't even know how to describe it in terms of physics, but it took many, many years and many scientists to come up with this discovery that there is a commonality among all in existence. Well, to me, that's comforting, because I feel like, that means that whatever's going on here in Earth, and in particular here in America, and in particular here in my own living room with my friends and my mate and my immediate family, it's really just part of this huge web that is being enacted day by day, minute by minute, second by second. We are all a part of this connectedness. And one little tiny thing, like an election in a place called America, that is only going to last for a little tiny piece of time, temporal energy called time, it's nothing. It's insignificant. It's like there's a beautiful beach and there is nothing but white sand. Oh, but if you go in with a microscope, you're going to find one tiny little piece of sand that is black. And so what? One tiny little piece of sand that chipped off of like an albatross's beak or something as it was flying over, and it through the grinding and the machinations of the waves, years after years and decades after decades, it became a tiny grain of black sand. Amongst the uncountable, the infinitesimal grains of white sand that represent good, positive, forward energy, upward evolution. Okay, so maybe there is a little tiny grain of black sand that we happen to be going through right now. What's the big deal in terms of the longevity of what this is all about? And I'm talking about human existence. I'm a human, you're a human, I think, unless you're an incredibly talented dog and you're listening to my voice. We are all in this together. We are all connected through our consciousness. We are all going through whatever we are going through individually. And in the overall picture, we don't know what is going to happen in the future, even the next minute. We are living this life together. And so change is just the swing of the pendulum. If we could think of time as this big, huge clock, as I always picture some short story that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. I don't remember the name of it, but it's just the swing of the pendulum, going backwards and forwards and swinging, and it doesn't stop because it has momentum. And it's not going to stop because we are in this flow of life together, and it doesn't stop. Even when we're dead, come on, we have enough evidence from people who have had near-death experiences where there is another dimension that we are amazed by the reports that people come back with, how similar it all is. There is a collectiveness of our consciousness. So the change, whether it's you having a hard time, or me, or my friend, or anybody having a hard time with what's going on in this world right now, I just want to offer some comfort. As my friend did ask me the other day, because after she went through her litany of things that are causing her distress, and to the point that where I don't see that she's able to even function. She's just so filled with turmoil that she wants to go from one rally to the next, one protest to the next, and she wants to move to, another country which she thinks will give her happiness. Well, the little enclave of rich expats living in one place, I know about them. I have lived in many places in the West Indies where these expats reside. And they usually all sit around the bar and complain about whatever administration it is they're running away from, or incident, or war, or whatever, instead of doing something more productive, like podcasting, like sharing their thoughts with the world. They'd rather share it with the bartender. So my friend ended up, after she expressed her angst, really sadness. It was almost like she was grieving her mother, or somebody she loved as much as her mother. But she's a happily married woman, and she has many things to be grateful for, and she did not list any of those. She just focused on the terribleness of what's happening in our society in America right now. And so she looked at me with real interest and asked me, so what do you do, Tez, to not feel just terrible about what's going on? And I'm so glad she asked, because I didn't think, as I went to the meeting that day, I was really almost scared, wondering if she was going to be interested in having a volley, a back and forth, a repartee, or was she just going to dump on me, which she has in the past. But she's not drinking so much these days, and she's gotten thinner, and alcohol tends to make people more angsty. It gets them soothed with their anger and their envy and their troubles. It just feeds that monster. I know, because I'm a recovering person. It's resentment. We who are in recovery know we cannot afford to have resentment, either toward another person or toward an administration. We just, that resentments will keep us drunk. They certainly will. So when she asked, she said, Tez, what do you do so that you're just not in a constant state of anger, fear, remorse, grief, etc.? I leaned back, and I'm going to try to relay to you what I told her, because I hadn't prepared what to say to her. I wasn't expecting her to ask. I basically said that I am observing what is happening. I am very aware of what's happening. I'm not in denial. I read my phone. I see the shift of the pendulum, and as it slices through all the previously arranged systems, just cutting things down left and right. And I am not making a judgment. I'm forcing myself not to make a judgment, this is good or this is bad, because I am observing. Right now, the pendulum has shifted radically to one side, but it's in motion. It's not stagnant. It's going to shift. Another side, it's going to keep shifting. And what I focus on is consciousness. My job as an artist, a communicator, is to try to spread the good word, the good news, that if we focus on positive things, positive aspects, positive moments, positive possibilities, if we focus on that, our consciousness becomes what we choose to think about. And so I'm explaining to my friend, I'm thinking about what I can do as a public artist and a person who has published 5 books, a person who has been invited to be a guest on many, like last time I counted, like 35 really interesting podcasts as a guest where we talk in depth about not just my work, but the world and how we who are involved in the upliftment of consciousness are really interested in spreading the fact that this is a choice. And I choose, I'm telling my friend, to focus on the unlimited possibilities of my consciousness as I focus on just witnessing what's going on in society, in the United States and Europe and Ukraine and Gaza and everywhere. As I focus on this, to know what's going on, to not be in denial, but I focus on the witness of having no opinion, to know that I am as connected with a suffering person in Ukraine and a misplaced person in Gaza and a heartbroken person in the other parts of what is now called Israel. I lived in Israel for over a year. I know what's going on there. I've written about it. And believe me, if one focuses on the pain and the sorrow and the destruction and the violence, one will have no hope. But that's not what my choice is, I tell my friend. My choice is to think about what millions of others like myself who are in the same frame of mind. We are the awakened sun dancers, it was called back in the 80s when we had the harmonics convergence in 1987 to celebrate the awakened consciousness of a certain number of alive human beings on this planet at that time in 1987. And at that time, there was this shift in consciousness that isn't spoken about so much in the newspapers because that doesn't sell news. Well, read your phone. It doesn't sell time on your screen. The fact that there are millions of awakened, conscious people who are working to keep us focused on the ever-positive upliftment of our human family and not on what people scroll on to find out about, the latest horror, or who's getting fired, or whose politics has become a reality show. That's not what this group of people on the planet right now that I am a member of is focused on. I told my friend, we are focused on the spiraling energy that, yes, has its downs and ups and sides and pendulum swings and periods of rest and periods of energizing and sharing and work, individual work where we all have to heal ourselves first before we can help uplift others. Even a simple friend who's struggling with a son who's dying, I have to be able to be sure about my heart connection with this thing called life, to be able to offer comfort to even my friend who's dealing with that in the emergency room right now, rather than this big effort of going out and protesting the government. First, each one of us must heal whatever it is that troubles us, and we must feel in harmony with the universe, in our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. And if something is uncomfortable, if something is, shaking our cage and rattling us, we must make some change. So just like Carter and I have talked about so many times, the road, the path to really embracing love, self-love first, and love and compassion with others is about awareness, acceptance, and then action. It's such a basic thing, but it really works. So the awareness is, yes, we're aware of the fact that everybody is really pissed off or angry or in shock or grieving, like my friend. And there are some people who are also wildly celebrating because their party won. Well, I'm not talking about anybody who's on either side of the team. I'm talking about the human family, how to approach this as a collective experience, not about the littleness, the little black piece of sand on the beach, about how my party won. That's small thinking. The bigger picture is we are on this white, beautiful sandy beach. And yes, there's different color grains of sand as we go closer and closer and closer to the beach. And we see that we must experience all of these different colors of sand, different aspects of reality. And we get to choose if we are going to accept the fact that it's homogeneous, even though it looks all sandy and whitish, there are little tiny pieces of different colored sands. If you get up close to a beach with your eyeball, just like you were when you were a kid looking at the ants in the lawn, you'll see that each grain of sand has a different color. It's not just this homogeneously one color sandy beach. There's black, there's pink, there's red, there's yellow, there's orange, there's even blue and green to make up this white sandy beach. And I'm using white just as a metaphor for peaceful as a beach would be, because I've lived on an island where there is a black sandy beach and it's hot because it holds the sun's rays, and you can't just walk on a black sandy beach. You have to run because the soles of your feet burn up. So I'm not making a judgment here about white being better than black. Please don't read anything into that. It's the metaphor of the white sandy beach is peace. Peace, harmony, love for the collective that we are all a part of, beauty in the fact that we have life. What a beautiful thing to be alive, to actually experience what's going on with all its foibles and faults and possibilities. And yes, there are some really hard things that we must go through, like my friend who's in the emergency room right now with her son, who might be dying, but we don't know. And we never know, because that's between that person and their journey, their own journey, to decide that. And so we are all this family, and we're going through this change. And I know what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the energy that I want to hoard, okay? Call me selfish. I want to keep as much positive energy as I can to continue to do the right thing. To me, that's the thing that makes my heart feel good and my gut feel good. That's the right thing. The wrong thing would be doing something and I can't sleep at night, or I haven't apologized for being an ass, or having hurt somebody's feelings. Those are the wrong things. The right thing is to continue developing energy so that I can focus it by continuing being involved in my efforts as a public artist who likes to write and share with podcasting, because that is an art form, and I'm involved in that art form, and it's a magnificent art form. I want to share my energies and keep it sacred and keep it clean and keep it nice and keep it fun and joyous. All those things are really things that you have to cultivate. They don't come easy, especially with what's happening now, especially with people who are complaining left and right about this and that. And I could throw in a few complaints too, and not really understanding the motivation of some of these changes. But like I have said, and I am committed to, I am being the witness. I am watching. It is not my job to be an administrator of politics or policy or how things are run. My job is to be the best human being that I can be right here, right now, and to continue really having a good feeling about being alive. That's my job. And whenever I lose that sense of, oh, wow, this is getting difficult, either being an older person, for instance, having injuries, having mishaps, each day, is etched on our face, on our soul, in our sense of humor. Every day counts. Every thought counts. Everything we do adds up. We're either going closer to having this union with the idea that I now know is not an idea, it is a reality that I nurture, that life is a sacred gift. We're either going closer to that, or we're just throwing it into the garbage heap saying, nah. So that's my choice. And my choice is definitely going toward, I call it the light of awareness, the light of consciousness, the light of compassion, the light of being one with all, feeling what's going on with all who are even uncomfortable in their skins or have been killed because of their beliefs, or just innocently lost because they don't know what to do. I feel all that. I've not shut off empathy, but yet the majority of my conscious mind, my thoughts, my thinking, my work is centered on celebrating life, celebrating what we've learned so far, knowing that we are ever spiraling upward with our consciousness, and not going along with the show, even though a lot of people around me are, well, how can I say it? I have lost friends. I have lost people who used to be part of my life, and now they, for one reason or other, because I'm not on the bandwagon, I'm not protesting, I'm not as angry, I'm not in grief like they are, they have ghosted me. And that's okay. Because I believe, I truly, that what I am focused on is going to be what my soul was brought to this earth plane to do. And I feel good about it. Do you? Do you feel good about what your soul is involved with right now? It's an interesting idea. And I invite you to just sit with that for a few minutes. Just to ponder your deepest part of yourself. Call it your heart. Call it your happiness. Call it what flips your bick, what floats your boat. We all have things that we love. We all have things that we hate. What are the things that you love? What do you love? What can you love more? Are you loving yourself? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you giving yourself joy, happiness, exercise, good food, good thoughts? Try to think of a few good thoughts right now. A few good thoughts. It might be something simple. Somebody you love smiles. Somebody who needs a smile that you can share your love for them as they will share with you. What do you love? That is your soul's purpose. Just think about it. Om Namah Shivaya.